was my first day at the NBC affiliate in Boise, Idaho. I was well into my TV career by then. I'd already been a news director and an evening anchor back on the East Coast. TV news was not new to me. A newsroom, it was very familiar ground. So the day itself, first day on the job, it was pretty typical. Tour the building, meet the people, get that key card, find my desk. By about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was at my desk teaching myself the newsroom software, and I heard a commotion over where the producers sat. Like a ground squirrel, I popped my head up over the cubicle wall to see what was going on. Curiosity got the best of me. Well, one of the producers spotted me and said, "Oh, we do have a reporter here. Dale's here." That's rarely how anything good begins. Breaking news had hit late that afternoon. I was the only reporter in the building. So my first day of orientation had just become my first live shot with the station. A photographer and I grabbed the live truck and drove to the Idaho State House. We set up outside for the 5 o'clock news. Now, I don't remember what that story was. I remember the mic in my hand. I remember the monitor at my feet showing me what was on the air. I remember the earbud carrying the newscast back to me. And then I heard the music. The newscast opens. The camera finds the anchor, Dee Sarton. She says, "We have breaking news and our newest reporter is live. Dale Dixon has the story." My heart rate jumps. My chest pulls tight right below my throat. The red light comes on and my mind goes completely blank. Like nothing there. No opening sentence, no first fact, no way into the story. I'm standing in front of a live camera in the city where I grew up. People are watching. People I went to school with, people who knew me before the titles ever existed, they're watching, including the people who hired me, thinking that I could do this job. I can't get the words out of my mouth. Now, I still can't tell you how I got through that live shot. I know I did. The newscast rolled on and the world kept turning. In fact, I was promoted to be the morning anchor, and that includes 2 hours of live television, countless live shots. A lot of that 2 hours unscripted every single morning, 5 to 7 a.m. So the feeling stayed. Even now, telling this story, oh man, it makes my stomach churn. Here's the part I couldn't understand at the time. I knew how to report. I knew how to write. I knew television news. The information had not vanished from my brain. The door to it, though, had completely slammed shut. I'm Dale Dixon. This is the Presence Lab, where we train the skill underneath the skill. I've spent 15 years in broadcast news, more than 20 years coaching leaders through high-stakes moments. I also wrote a book, Sweating Bullets. It's about what pressure does to very capable people when the room starts watching. Today, we're taking apart the blank. Why does the mind go empty when we know the material cold? Why does the answer show up later in the elevator or at 3 o'clock in the morning? Does that sound familiar? How do we get it back in the moment without bluffing or rambling? You're going to get the mechanism. You're going to get 3 tools for the moment the blank hits, and you'll get 1 prep practice that makes live answers look way more spontaneous than they really are. The field guide for this episode is at daledixon.me/blank. It's got the 3 recovery tools, a question war game, and a story index you can start building this week. Hold on to that red light at the State House. We're going to come back to it because the lesson I took from that day was wrong. And one other quick point. There's a whole community for this. I would love to have you join. You get early access to these episodes, direct access to me anytime for Q&A to help you improve your specific presentations. So, we admire people who are fast on their feet. I love the movie The Lincoln Lawyer. Matthew McConaughey's character walks into a courtroom, reads the whole room in half a second. Somebody throws a hostile question. He flips it around and lands the line everybody else wishes they would have thought of. It's a lot of fun to watch, but you know what? That is not me. Ask me for the perfect comeback in 1 second, and you might want to pull up a chair. I'm going to think of it tomorrow or while brushing my teeth the next morning. For a long time, I thought that this was a weakness. Strong communicators were quick. Executive presence meant having the answer right now. The pause felt like a leak in my credibility, and the longer it lasted, the more authority drained out. I completely understand why we believe that. Senior leaders are paid to make decisions. Audiences expect expertise. A board member asks a direct question. Nobody wants to watch the leader freeze while the plan quietly catches fire. The belief starts to break when we notice something. We've been confusing three things. One, knowing the answer, reaching the answer, and getting it out fast enough for the room. Those are not the same skill. We can know the material cold and still lose access to it. We can answer fast and still answer badly. And we can take 10 seconds or 10 hours and come back with the thing that actually moves the work. Speed is useful, but it is not proof of depth. A leader's job is not to win the buzzer. It's to give the room an answer that holds up long after that meeting ends. Here's the real question. Why do we keep treating the fastest answer as the smartest one? The blank doesn't always look like standing speechless on live TV. Sometimes it's a board member asking why the number moved, and the leader answers before she knows the answer. Sometimes it's a client poking at the premise, and the presenter defends 6 things that nobody questioned. Sometimes it's a hard question in an all hands, and the exec answers the attack instead of the concern underneath it. And everybody's sitting there saying, wait a minute, the leader's not answering the question. Sometimes it's an interview where the spokesperson knows it cold and blanks the second the reporter leans in. The blank also arrives quietly. Someone asks a good question. We know the answer's in there somewhere. We can almost feel it. Then we start searching and we notice everyone waiting. We notice ourselves searching, and pretty soon that's the only thing in our head. That second layer does more damage than the first. The first thought is, I can't find the answer. The second thought is, they can all see that I can't find the answer. The room gets bigger, the silence gets louder, and the body starts guarding us against a threat that mostly lives in our own head. The answer was already hard to reach. Now we've handed ourselves a second job, hiding the fact that it's hard. That's a lot of work for one nervous system to be doing. Here's what's happening. So working memory is where we hold information, organize it, compare options, and turn the thought into spoken words. Think of it as the workbench, not the warehouse. The warehouse might be packed. The workbench only has so much room. Here's the gist of the research. Stress shrinks our working memory. It makes the brain less flexible. And the more a moment demands, the more our working memory takes the hit. So in a high-stakes moment, we pile that workbench high. The facts, the room, the relationship, the message, the follow-up, all at once. And we include in there stories we're telling ourselves about what's happening in the moment. And then we act surprised when there's no room left to build the actual sentence. It gets worse when we feel watched and judged. That's the piece most advice skips. A question is rarely hard just because of its content. It's hard because of who asked it, who's watching, and what we think the answer might cost us. That day at the State House, the story was not the whole load. It was my first day. It was live. It was home. People who knew me were watching. The new guy had just been introduced by name. The red light didn't erase my experience. It filled the workbench. One more thing the research points to. Under stress, pulling an answer up cold gets hard. A cue makes it easier. That's why saying the question back in plain words can help. That's why one keyword can bring back a whole section. That's why a story can unlock an answer faster than a definition. The material's in the warehouse. A cue just tells us which aisle to walk down. There's one more thing to get before we get to the tools. We think the whole room can see us panicking. They can't. We feel the heart pounding, the chest going tight, the word that just won't come. The answer just sees a pause. Maybe a slightly longer one than usual. That's it. The blank feels huge from the inside because we feel every bit of it. The room gets just a sliver. This is where it feeds on itself. We notice the missing answer, then we start tracking how bad we must look, and that watching eats the very working memory we needed to find the answer. The system is trying to open the file and run a PR campaign at the same time. Cancel the second job. The room sees way less than we think. The picture to hold is a library. A library can hold every book ever written. Without an index, it's still useless. Knowing isn't the same as finding. So under pressure, we find out something uncomfortable. We built the whole library. We never built the index. The knowledge is there, stacked floor to ceiling. The question lands, and we're running up and down the aisles. Live Q&A looks spontaneous from the outside. The best version usually isn't. It's prepared retrieval. So, here's the weird thing in light of everything you've heard. I love live Q&A when I am on stage. I thrive on it when the material's mine and I know it cold. A company I work with runs a quarterly Ask Me Anything. About 150 people can ask the leadership team anything. And those sessions are fun. That might sound inconsistent with the guy who froze outside the State House. It isn't. The difference is the index. So my TV career trained me to hunt for stories all the time. Reporters walk into the morning meeting with ideas or they don't last. Every conversation, every odd detail, every little change in town became a possible story. That habit follows me home. So when our kids were still home, we built a gratitude practice at dinner. Everybody told the story of one thing they were grateful for that day. The story made it hit deeper. It also let me teach the kids a structure from sweating bullets without them knowing. Challenge, struggle, resolution. What happened? Why did it matter? How did it turn out? Night after night, without ever calling it communication training, we were building a family story library. I still log stories. When a question comes in a live Q&A, I rarely build an answer from nothing. I find the story that carries it. So the audience sees agility. What they can't see is the index. Thinking on our feet rarely begins on our feet. There's a wonderfully inconvenient example sitting underneath this whole episode. So when I started building this episode, someone asked me a question. Take me to the strongest moment you can remember when you knew the material cold, someone put you on the spot, and your mind went completely blank. I couldn't answer it. The answer is this episode. And I couldn't find it. I thought about it, I searched for a story, and nothing came. I went to bed with it unsolved. Next morning, the question was the literally first thing in my head. The answer showed up almost right away, and there's research behind that. So sleep helps the brain reorganize what we've already loaded in, but only what we've already loaded in. It's not a vending machine. We don't drop in a board question at night and get brilliance back with our coffee. It doesn't work on every problem either. We just have to feed it something first. So I went to bed after really wrestling with it. The next morning, the answer wasn't a random memory. It was a better frame. I'd been hunting for one dramatic moment. The real answer was a pattern. I'm not naturally quick with every instant comeback, but I've built systems that make me sharp when the questions really matter. So the NBC story came to me after that. The mind had finally stopped searching in the wrong category. 3 tools. 1 for the moment it hits, 1 for getting access back, 1 for building the index before anyone asks. Here is tool number 1. Own the gap. This is for the first second after the question lands and nothing comes back. The move is to let the gap be a pause, not a verdict. Let the silence sit. Our heart rate might climb. Our chest might tighten. The answer might still be missing. None of that means we have to start talking with nowhere to go. So here's the line that I say to myself. The room sees a pause. I feel the panic. They're not the same thing. That line cancels the second panic. So Jerry Weissman writes about handling tough questions. His point is simple. Answer a loaded question instantly, and control goes straight to the person who asked it. So he starts with listening, then a short neutral buffer before the answer. That buffer isn't filler. It isn't great question while your brain scrambles behind the curtain. It's one honest beat that lets the question finish arriving. So a simple line works. Give me a moment to think about that. Then take the moment. 10 honest seconds of silence beats 60 seconds of fog every single time. Tool number 2, build the handle. This is for when the answer's in there, but it just won't come up on its own. The move is to turn the question into a cue. Weissman's version is to paraphrase a hot question. So we're going to strip out the hostility. Say the real issue back in plain, neutral words. And that does 3 jobs at once. Number 1, it confirms what we heard, it clears the emotional clutter, and it hands the mind a much cleaner target. So a person might ask, after missing the number twice, why should anyone believe this forecast? The unregulated answer fights the accusation. The cleaner version sounds like this. Oh, you're asking what's changed in the numbers and why this forecast is more reliable. That's a question the brain can actually hold. Then find one handle. The date, the decision, the customer, the principle, the story, just one. So in Sweating Bullets, the message map is one thesis, 3 key points, and the evidence under them. Under pressure, we don't need the whole document. We need one word that opens the right aisle. The sample line is this. The most important change is the customer retention assumption. Let me start there. One handle, one aisle, one answer. When the question's hostile, answer the room, not just the person. Give a beat of eye contact while listening, then open the answer out to everyone. It keeps the moment from turning into a private duel. It also reminds the nervous system that one sharp voice is not the whole room. And here is tool number 3, build the index. This is the upstream work. The move is to prepare for retrieval, not recitation. So before a high-stakes meeting, war game the questions. What would the skeptic ask? What number is vulnerable? What premise could be challenged? What question would make the chest tighten? And we write those answers down. Writing matters for me. I think best with a pen, a keyboard, and room to find the actual thought. The method can vary, but the principle stays the same. Preparation creates routes. Then build a story index. Log the stories as they happen long before any question shows up. Really make a habit of catching a hold of stories. Give each one a short name. Note the challenge, the struggle, and the resolution. Add the lesson that it teaches. A client asks about trust after a mistake. There's a story for that. An employee asks how to move without certainty. There's a story for that. Someone asks whether preparation can turn into a crutch. There's a dead Dell computer and a blue screen waiting for them. And all you have to do is listen to the most recent episode before this to know what that story is. A story gives dry knowledge a hook. It's also easier for the room to follow and remember. Live Q&A isn't a courtroom trick. It's a well-indexed library answering in real time. There's one more move inside all 3 tools. It might be the most credible sentence a leader can say. I don't know. As a boundary, not an escape. I know myself well enough to spot when a question needs more than the room allows. So I'll just say it plainly. I don't have the best answer for you right now. Give me a moment and I will come back with it. That moment in that case is a specific time-bound promise. So it could be, give me an hour. Give me until later this afternoon. Give me until tomorrow. I need to know how fast I can get the real answer and get back to the person or the group. That answer has 3 parts. State what's known, name what isn't known yet, and commit to a follow-up with a real time on it. Weissman argues for the same principle. Skip the fake certainty, skip the rambling, define the boundary, and close the loop. The sample sounds like this. What I know is that the customer impact is contained. I don't know the full cost or the recovery timeline. I'll have both confirmed and back to you by 10 tomorrow morning. That's not weakness, it's control without theater. The skeptic has a fair objection. Leaders can't sleep on every question. Some moments need an answer right now. Absolutely correct. The skill is telling those apart. Some questions do need action right now. Some deserve a better answer later. Presence isn't instant certainty. Presence is staying credible while the certainty is being built. So the blank isn't proof that the knowledge disappeared. Pressure loads the workbench. Being watched piles on more. The fear that everyone can see us collapsing piles on still more. Eventually, there's no room left to think and speak. Recovery is 3 moves. We own the gap, build the handle, and we do that when we've built the index before the question ever came. That's the path from blank to answer. The leader doesn't need every book open on the table. The leader just needs to know where to find the next one. So come back with me to the State House. The red light comes on, my heart jumps, my chest pulls tight, right below my throat. D. Sarton says, our newest reporter is live. Dale Dixon has the story. Then nothing. For years, I treated that moment as an indictment. A seasoned journalist should have handled it. I'd anchored newscasts, I'd managed newsrooms, covered breaking stories, led teams. I believed the blank exposed something. It did. It exposed the difference between experience and access. I'd been in that newsroom a few hours. I didn't know the people. I didn't know the workflow. I barely knew the software. I got sent straight from orientation to breaking news, then introduced live as the newest reporter in the city where I grew up. I had the knowledge. I had no index for that moment, no opening line ready, no structure in hand, no cue except the red light in my own name. The lesson I took that day was to get faster, sharper, more gifted in the moment. The better lesson took years. Prepare the route, trust the pause, find the handle, tell the story. The man outside the State House eventually got through the live shot. The man recording this episode still doesn't remember what the story was. I remember the blank. That's not the embarrassing part anymore. The embarrassing part would be going through it and learning nothing. So the next hard question is coming. It might come from the board, from a client, from an employee, from a reporter, from somebody across the dinner table who knows just where to aim it. That question is your call to adventure. The older response is to rush, defend, bluff, or fill. The better response is to stay in the room long enough to find what you already know. The blank field guide is at daledixon.me/blank. It's got the 3 tools, a question war game, a message map prompt, and a story index template. It's free. Go grab a hold of it. It means so much if you like, subscribe, and share this episode, especially with the one leader you know who's sure the fastest answer is always the smartest one. That's how more people find the work. It's also how the next episode finds you. If you want the deeper version of all of this, come find the Sphere Presence Lab. Members get early episodes, the field guides, and the ideas I'm still working on. It's where I actually hang out. It's where I hold the live Q&A, which feels about right after a conversation like this one. Join free at daledixon.me/community. The link is also in the description. You don't lose your intelligence when the room gets hard. You lose access. Build the index, and the words find their way home. I'm Dale Dixon. This is the Presence Lab podcast. I'll see you next time.